Everybody, welcome to the Health Advisory Committee meeting for April the 28th, 2025. At this time, we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Okay, our first order of business is for the approval of the agenda. I believe I can get unanimous consent for approval of the agenda.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, absolutely. Awesome. Next, we have public comments, and Ms. Robin is gone to let people in, so I am going to circle back to that if that's okay. That's fine. Everybody. Next, we have the March 18th committee minutes to review or approve, which I believe are in everybody's packet. So,
Motion to approve.
all right, thank you.
Second.
Dr. Pierce, motions, and Ms. Colburn Smith, seconds. And all those in favor?
All right.
All right. Any opposed? Caitlin online, are you?
Not opposed, sorry.
Okay, yeah, no, you're good. Thank you. Just didn't want to leave you out. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the review of the supplemental materials. I am going to attempt to share my screen. There's two people in the chat. Oh, no, it's okay. Oh, you're gonna have to approve me to share my screen. Allow. See if I can try again. All right. Work. Yep. Okay. Screen. Okay. All right. So this always throws me for a loop because. All right. So we each were assigned to review 2 modules worth of materials. What we were supposed to do is if you reviewed it and it was all good, then you were good to go. There, you didn't have to do anything. If there were any concerns about any of the materials that you reviewed, then we were to place it on the form on the 3rd tab for the reviewer comments. So we can just go in order, Ms. Glaze, if you feel comfortable starting, or if you would rather not be the first guinea pig to go.
I'm good. First gonna be last, last person.
Okay.
Yeah. Me there, and that's what I made a comment on, I think on lesson 1.
All right.
Ahead.
So you were saying that you had concern over the amount of things that happened?
Well, after, you know, I did this so long ago, right now I gotta review what I was said. But, Mercedes along with, the response was it was only physical, but I thought it was physical and mental that would have impacted her.
Okay,
So after, that was my comment, you know,
So
that she was fat, obese, people think it's just physical, but that can affect you mentally. That was one suggestion I made, and that's all it was, and everything else was fine.
do you remember which
Yeah, that first one,
which sheet it was, or was it the PowerPoint?
it was on a PowerPoint.
Okay,
Uh-huh,
okay.
yeah. It was on whatever you sent.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep, you got it.
So,
So that was, so they just just make note of that on the PowerPoint that.
Also gonna put it in here.
What? Okay,
And I
so,
made those-
so it's,
like my
module
comments right
10,
there.
middle school, module 10, lesson 1.
Right,
And it would talk about changes in adolescence on the
Yes.
6th grade enrichment activity.
mm-hmm,
And, there's a character, I guess, her name is Mercedes,
correct.
and that it talked about the physical changes experienced during, puberty, but it didn't mention much about mental emotional changes, for 6th grade.
Because it just made it physical, and I thought it should also include emotional when you talk about and, made
Yep.
fun of and things like that. That was the only thing I made a comment on.
Okay.
Module 10.
All right, beautiful. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I'm next, but I don't have to steal the show, so I'm happy to go too. I don't want anybody to be like, oh, she went first.
You will follow your lead.
Okay. So I had 2 high school modules. I had module 7 and module 24. My concerns with, the majority of the things that I reviewed was whether or not we could get a more current version of the materials. For example, one of them had a pie chart from 2005, which was probably pretty close to when before these children were born, that would be looking at it. And so just getting something more current, from the publisher perhaps, so that we're not creating our own, materials, but, just something more advanced. I also felt like some of the, there was a typo on one of the worksheets, the note-taking worksheet in, lesson 1, module 24. It said symbols instead of symptoms. Again, similar on the other ones that I have listed here, data was from 2007 or, and then some of the scenarios that were in the materials seemed out of date for today's student. I just, I don't think that it was relevant for what our students experience in life in 2025. And then, also, again, some of the statistics, and data, for the HIV/AIDS, like in the worksheet, it said it was considered a pandemic. I don't know if HIV/AIDS is still considered a pandemic like it was when this was created. And then there was an enrichment worksheet that made, a reference to kind of like an alternative lifestyle. And I'm not sure if that is compliant with our legislation. That are we allowed to mention that, or not? And then again, the number of cases, and treatment options for those who have HIV/AIDS. And then I think that was it for me. Any questions about any of those materials? All right. So that leads us to Mr. Pierce, or Dr. Pierce, excuse me. I apologize.
Not a problem there. Well, I had, middle school module 2, lesson 1, beginning to date. And I really thought that the teaching on the slides were excellent, and I thought they were age appropriate. I didn't have any comments, on that. Middle school module 2, lesson 2, healthy dating relationships. The discussion I thought was appropriate for the 8th grade. I don't remember all the specifics of the discussion, but I had some concern about presenting it to the 6th and 7th grade. Some of the earlier material that we've reviewed involved, anatomy, physiology, reproductive anatomy for males and females, and that definitely needs taught first, before this part. But other than that, it also had good guiding principles and teaching of sexual issues and responsibility, and had an excellent discussion. Middle school module 2, lesson 3, abstinence and saying no. I thought excellent discussion of refusal skills, excellent example of pressure to say yes and ways to say no. And I thought it was age appropriate. I also had 2 in high school, module 9, lesson 3, understanding relationships. Through a good lesson in why violence may occur, discusses what factors lead to violence and how the student can avoid risky situations and therefore hopefully avoid exposure to potentially violent situations. Gang violence was discussed, and additional material discusses how media affects violence and the important facts to know concerning violence. And I thought it was age appropriate. And my last one was module 9, lesson 4, preventing violence and overcoming abuse. I thought it was a excellent discussion of types of abuse, stalking, rape, as well as discussion about help that is available for survivors, and also discussed how to protect yourself from abuse. So I really didn't find a lot of problem areas in my material.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So next on our sheet is Connie. Are you ready? Okay.
Yes, so similar situation, my topic is more so the social health, which we didn't find a lot when we did a lot of our scrubbing of the other material when it came to the social aspects. So I found nothing in the building character. Practicing communication was, in my mind, I remember thinking, man, this is really appropriate for the middle school. Like, every concept map and other assignment, it was a clear distinction between like the ages that we were dealing with, So I liked that, but I tried to really more so focus on the things that were the stops. And I didn't see any stops in module 2. Module 3. Nothing. So the high school module 8, which was under peer relationships, what stood out for me in lesson 3, the enrichment worksheet, there was some debate regarding sexual content and its relation to the teen, like their choices that they made. So I believe that it was age appropriate for that group. They're high school. They need to know how to engage in a mature discussions regarding their sexual health and just in general, how to approach certain situations. The note-taking worksheet allowed them to prioritize their learning interests. I like that. It was like they got to speak or to note what in their lesson they thought was most important. So I really, really like that. I was surprised that I saw that. And then the reading essentials, there was a discussion on engaging in sexual activity. And they mentioned a lot about STDs, like contracting STDs, teen pregnancy, and effects on mental health if they were to engage in sexual activities. So it's a very real situation, and it didn't seem to me that there was anything, you know, that was contraindicated in the state laws for that. I think that was it.
I
Is
do
that
have,
mine?
yeah, this one's yours right here. This types of families and their definitions were written out with
Oh,
contradicting. That was the module 1, lesson 4 in the middle school.
right. Okay, that was the one thing. They defined the types of families being nuclear, blended, adoptive, you know, so. Yeah, that one. And I thought that that was good. The definitions were well written and very direct. There was no ambiguity in that. I was looking for a same-sex, because I just knew they were gonna have it and they didn't,
Yeah.
so. Good. All well.
All right, thank you very much. All right, next on our list is Miss Cindy.
All right, and unfortunately, I missed the last meeting, and I did check with both the ladies. I didn't understand that we were not supposed to comment unless there was a problem, so I commented on everyone.
I don't think it's a bad thing, though.
So did I.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
As far as module 6 with skills for healthy relationships, I thought most of those were appropriate for high school. I did think that some of the activities would require more than one class period, like write a children's book as a group activity. That would take more than one session, I think. But as far as the content, it was appropriate. A good explanation of a lot of the definitions, good content review. The handout number 1, academic integration scenario on dating and bullying, that was okay for high school. The note-taking worksheet for lesson 2 under module 6 describe 2 ways to stop a bully. My thought from previous experience with this age group is some students will have a challenge with this due to the concept of snitching. You know, calling someone out or telling on someone who's bullying. So that would probably lead to some discussion in the class, which they may not have anticipated. But as far as the other activities, they were fine. Module 6, enrichment, the academic integration worksheets, the reteaching, all of those were fine. I did have some challenges though with module 18, the life cycle continues for high school. A lot of it, the students would definitely have to refer to the textbook or online materials in order to complete the activities, because they're talking about you doing research on puberty and things that they couldn't really do without actually doing research. I did think the graphics were helpful. And if they have read the lessons, they would have no problems with those. Lesson 2, module 18, academic integration, which was a math area, their outdated graph from 2001. I did mention that. The enrichment worksheet, teen marriage, I didn't think that was a realistic scenario. It needed to be updated more to a teen mom helping to raise a child than what they had in the scenario. The note-taking worksheet, I'm not sure it correlates with the state standards.
When you say that, what do you mean by?
Adult marriage and parenthood, they don't really talk a lot about that in the previous
Oh, okay, I
modules
see what
that
you're
we
saying.
had
Yeah.
reviewed. I didn't review them, but in the previous review, they didn't talk a lot about that, so I wasn't sure. And lesson 3 under module 18, the academic integration I put doesn't correlate with the state standards. The enrichment activity cannot find, they talked a lot about male and female menopause. Well, that is not in the state standards anywhere that I could find. So I don't think that enrichment activity correlates. The note taking talked about transitions and middle adulthood. Those are not mentioned in the South Carolina state standards. The reteaching activity doesn't relate. And And the reading strategy about middle adulthood, not relevant to the South Carolina state standard. So those are the things I picked up on. Does that help?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
I apologize for the interference.
You're fine. All right, so that leaves us to Miss Caitlin.
Hello. I also did not find a ton of like things that I disagreed with. There was only a couple, with sixth graders being like the health setting in an elementary school is a lot different than the health setting once they get to middle school. So, in module 17, lesson 1, I was thinking a word bank might be a little bit beneficial to them so that they kind of have at least an idea of what they should be doing to fill in all the blanks on it was like a bunch of fill in the blanks on all of their documents. So I just think maybe a word bank would be helpful for them since they probably are new to most of the words and terms that they're going to learn about. And then for the same module, lesson 3, on the concept map and the cross curriculum activity, it was from 6th through 8th grade. So I was a little bit concerned about how it was expected that the 8th graders would be doing kind of the same exact thing that the 6th and 7th graders would be doing. And I think some of the information about like STDs was like for a 6th grader would be a lot to come into. For an 8th grader, they would have seen it for the, last couple of years, so it wouldn't be as much. So I just think somehow breaking that down would maybe be beneficial as well. And then for high school, for lesson 1, all of the documents, I thought they were really great. I loved that they had like kind of sidebars that they could take notes on to really kind of hopefully make more sense of the knowledge, because I know a lot of it is tough things that they aren't as receptive to. And then for lesson 2, the reading essentials document, I also thought was really appropriate and super informative. So I didn't really have many complaints.
Well, thank you very much. And I will say too, with the concept map and cross curricular with the STDs, I think the state standards themselves kind of dictate what grade level gets what.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. All right. So did anybody feel as though, other than seeing about how we could get more current data on the handouts, did anybody feel like they had anything that was just outright, we should not, this wouldn't be appropriate for us to use, or is not in guidelines with legislation for us to use?
Well, there were 2 or 3 areas where, I commented, and I think Caitlin did, about the use of the material for 6th and 7th
Right.
graders. And I think we might need to have them look at that,
Okay,
but,
yes. So,
That is a challenge with the one textbook and 3 grade levels.
oh, for sure.
So,
In any subject.
yes,
well, yeah,
yep.
especially when they begin.
Yes.
I went through every single PowerPoint. I saw nothing that was a no as far as standards or laws or anything. There was nothing that I saw other than the typos that we'd already discussed, or a cut paste, of information that needed to be corrected, but nothing that was not allowed. So
My understanding is we would take this and make a recommendation, or
do you remember how the textbook went?
the textbook, we decided that what we were gonna recommend as an HAC, and then we presented it at academic committee. And then academic committee decided whether or not it was appropriate or not to get full board approval.
Okay.
I'm assuming we do this same for this?
I would assume yes.
Okay,
That would be the process.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss Robin.
And I took notes for Dr. Stratus and everything you said as best I could. So between this and the recording, she can be updated with that to then know she needs to know for the next step.
So my question would be, just trying to think ahead, because if we're gonna go to academic committee and say, well, we recommend this, but we would like to see updated whatever from the publisher, let's say, or, you know, more age appropriate for blah, 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 whatever. Is that something you would do as far as reach, since you already have that connection with the publisher to say,
For an updated.
yeah,
That's something I could definitely ask about. Yeah. Because even though that the state might not adopt a new textbook, I feel like the textbook company can always, they're constantly updating what they're offering as long as it didn't change. You know, as
Right.
long as the material didn't
well,
change.
I would think like if for a pie chart, just make it current instead of something that's older than the kids.
Right.
Like,
From 2001.
yes.
Yes.
Because
I can,
the kids will know and they will ask, you know,
Well, it says it on these documents
Yeah.
in 2001, and I think, you know, just making sure that, you know, like, is HIV/AIDS still considered a pandemic? I don't know. You know, are the treatments that they talk about in that section, are those current? You know, because that's stuff that's kind of changes pretty regularly, so just making sure that we're giving the right information, because consequently too, I could see standing in front of a class and saying this, and then they go Google it and they'd be like, oh no, you're the, you know,
they will
yeah, they will. But you know, we owe that to them too, to give them,
give them good information.
and that's the hard thing with health. And even at the state level,
Just changes.
you know, like not adopting a new book, this is where, for so many years, this is where it kind of impacts us, is that we're not giving our kids the best or the most current. All right. Any other questions? Thank you guys for your work. Hopefully this wasn't as arduous as the textbook, because most of them were one pagers, so it was,
And if it was really out in left field, we were picking it out more easily.
yeah, yeah.
you start to get an eye for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad too that we at least got to review the textbook before we did this, because I think that probably helped a lot of us.
Mr. Dallas would like to comment.
Okay,
Thank you, Ms. Cushingberry. Thank you, Ms. Pryor and everyone. I just want to compliment this particular group. I've watched your HAC meetings several times. I have seen a phenomenally reassuring trend. Everybody always comes prepared for the section that they've been delegated. They've studied, they've basically looked at what they were guided to do. They come back in with a lot of precision, very cogent remarks, substantive insights, and that makes for a very efficient group. I mean, it's at like 32 minutes, and we actually, have been talking about 28 minutes, and look how much you've accomplished. So I just want to say super kudos to the organization and the preparation and the input that everyone actually undergoes. So well done. Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Dallas. Ms. Gordon, yes.
Yes, I met with, Mr. Dallas on Friday at our work session. And he said exactly the same thing there. And that he was going to make sure that he tells you guys, this, and this has been a great committee. When you think about all the things that you had to do. I haven't made it to all the meetings in person, and I feel badly about that, but you guys just carried on. And we are so much further than I thought we'd be. And that is kudos to you guys, and that you're going to present to the academic committee with Dr. Stratos. That team is awesome. And then you guys are awesome. It just makes my life a little bit easier. I'll be honest, but I too thank you. And I know the board is going to be very appreciative of the work that you've done, because if I remember correctly, the advisory committee was behind, right? We were a few years behind the 8 ball here, and you guys have brought us up to speed. So that in itself, thank you so much.
Thank you. I can speak as a teacher. It's been less than a year that we've been meeting. And really, we didn't start till the fall.
Yeah, the fall, yeah.
So to be able to, on my school, we're in the units now teaching them. And so like every day I'm like, thanking you guys. Because like I haven't been able to teach it. And so like even the kids, like,
Did we share that, the directive for that for the end of the year? Did we share that at the last meeting
I don't know.
about all schools and the expectation?
I don't know if we did.
Because we were able to get this accomplished as quickly as we did, I feel like also I agree, this was quick in a good way. All the middle and high school schools before they dismiss for the end of the year are to teach this material to anyone, if it's high school, anyone in PE1 and anyone middle school who's currently in PE, so that we can cover the kids for this school year. And then going forward, it will only get better because if this is approved, we have supplemental material to use and so it's only going to grow and be more comprehensive and better for the students. So that was something that we really wanted to have happen. And I'm in my position, I'm so thankful that we are, because it's what's best for kids.
And I think the parents are, and I think the students, even though they probably would never admit it but they sit quietly, like the behavior issues that you would typically have in a classroom. They're quiet and they're listening and they're engaged. And so, even though we don't have any supplemental materials right now, they're still participatory and asking questions. And, so
And it's a start.
it is.
It's a place
It
to
is.
start.
They know that,
Yeah.
they know that we haven't been able to do this. So, and I really see it in the 8th graders more so because they know that they haven't had it since they've been in the middle school and now they are. So, and I think they want to know, and it feels good that they trust us, that we're giving them the right information.
Make sure you tell the academic committee that when you're presenting, and so that they can also relate that information back to the board and we can hear it in a public setting,
Right.
because this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Amen.
And it's supposed to be about the children. And I didn't hear any adult, anything. I didn't hear or I didn't read anything that was, but we should do this or do that. But it was all about what the children needed to hear or should hear or should not hear. And it wasn't about what the adults should say or not say. Because believe it or not, they already hear it.
Oh,
They're
and then
already
some.
hearing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we haven't put it in the context that they really need to understand what they're listening to so that they can, read that text. So I'm excited about this. Really appreciate it.
We are too. All right. Anything else about the supplemental material?
I think it's more than enough.
Yeah.
Just-
It was a lot. It was a lot.
I mean, as for the teachers, it's more than enough.
Oh, well,
Of
so that
different
I was
types of
having a
activities.
conversation, because my colleagues know that I'm on the committee. And so they've been asking me about it. High school has more supplemental options than the middle school. But what I think is nice is, as a teacher, our school, we have a lot of students that don't speak English as their native language. So I have everybody from our advanced kids to our general ed kids to our special ed kids. And so this gives me options for differentiation for each of those students. And so I can get something that's a little bit more rigorous and challenging to my advanced student who's sitting in a class with maybe a SPED student. And then I can give them something and they're both on task and they both have something that's at their level that I'm able. So that's what I love about having the multiple, rather than just saying, okay, this is the one we're going to do for everybody.
A variety.
Yeah.
Is available.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about when it was brought up about concern regarding using one text for 3 different grades. But I mean, I saw the change and the challenge from 6th to 8th grade on the same, you know what I'm saying, when I was reviewing that same material. So I think that that's probably why they do it. Like, okay, yeah, we can do one source, but we can isolate or broaden these, supplemental
Yeah.
activities as much as we want.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a
Yeah.
plus.
Well, thank you. So this is gonna, well, before I go into we skipped over public comments. Miss Robin, is there
We didn't
anybody?
have
Okay. Okay.
She asked me, you did vote, right? You approved the minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We did. All right, so the next thing is the review of the Rubicon Atlas. So Rubicon is our curriculum house for all curriculum that's taught for every content area. And it's so that everybody has access to the same, it's like a pacing guide, but also the supplemental materials, unit plans, and then it gives options for lessons as well. And that way, especially in this context, everybody's got access to the same thing and everybody is teaching the same thing so that we can make sure that there's consistency across the district. So that's the online platform. So what I've done is gone in and uploaded. These are drafts. Teachers don't have access to this yet because it's not approved. But once it's approved, all we have to do is change it from draft to published and we're good to go. So I've done a reproductive health unit for 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and then the high school. So I literally took what was in the textbook, and this is kind of the unit overview. So this came straight from the state legislature documentation. It's just an introduction, and I put a hyperlink here in case anybody wants to see what it is and what all the details are. They can click on that and access it. And then I just pulled out the highlights of what we're teaching and why we're teaching it. Then I go through each of the modules for that grade and highlight the topics for each one of those modules. So 6th grade, I think, had 5 modules. So it goes through each one and highlights the topics that are covered in the textbook. Then I identified all the standards for that unit for each grade level. And I'm going to scroll through all those because we've already done all that. And then there are clarifying statements so that people get a better understanding. So as a teacher, I'm going in, I'm going, okay, I'm module 1, lesson 1. What am I covering? What are the details of what I'm covering? So those are the clarifying statements, plus the vocabulary that goes with each one of those lessons. And so as a teacher, I would know, oh, these are the vocabulary words that I'm covering on each of these modules and lessons. And then underneath that is the content. So I created a chart because administration as well as district officials look at this as well. And so if, let's say, my principal's coming in to do an observation, this is a reference for them to be able to see what I'm supposed to be teaching. So I put the module number, the lesson, and then the content, the specific content of that lesson, and what page numbers of the textbook it's to be found on. And that's kind of a quick guide too for a teacher, like, oh, I'm module whatever, lesson whatever. This is where I'm going to look for that information. These are the skills that are covered, and those are the 8 standards for health education. So those are the skills that are being covered in the unit. And then all the way down there, I think it's learning targets, which are basically I can statements, which our district uses to be able to say, I can, by the time I learn this information, I can whatever. And so that is the unit plan. And then there are also lessons. So for each one of those modules and lessons, and we titled them what the lesson was talking about, so that just in an effort to make it easier for teachers to go, oh, I need the family relationships information. So they would click, and they're in order numerically of how they align in the book. So the first 3 or 4 here is module 1. Lessons 1, 2, 3, and 4, if that makes sense. So if they click on the lesson, it tells them again what book, what the unit title is, the module and lesson, and the page number. But then these are the supplemental materials that we just reviewed. So that teacher can go into those lessons and say, okay, and then I titled them, obviously MS is middle school, module 1, lesson 3. These are the 6th grade resources that we just reviewed, and then the PowerPoint that goes with lesson 3. And so I could go in and see and print off and do whatever it is that I need to do as a teacher to go into the classroom and teach that lesson.
Yeah, I have a question, and this may, I don't have enough information to know the answer, so I'm going to ask a question. The ones that we reviewed and just presented, if they did not align with the state standards, are they up there?
So if it does get pulled, that's why this is in draft mode.
Okay,
So let's say we decide, oh, we're gonna pull whatever, the 6th grade reteach, then I would just delete it out of
Okay.
there. So once we get everything officially approved.
those will be filtered to be appropriate according to the state
Correct.
standards.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep, so if anything gets changed or edited or
Or if I
removed,
was successful in an update, then I could share it. Well, I have editing rights too, but I
Yeah.
could go in, remove the old and put it in the new.
Okay.
On just the one piece. So, yeah.
but that's why we left everything in draft, because nothing is officially approved, but at least once it is, we're good to go and we can release it to the teachers and
make their life easier.
yes.
That has been a point of contention, is nothing beyond the textbook. So my goal for sure is when we go back in the fall, is this be a thing that we can share so that they have some variation in the lessons.
And we've worked to do the other units as well. So hopefully next fall, everybody will be like, here's
We'll
your,
have all the things.
here's your curriculum. Have fun.
Yep.
So are there any questions or anything that anybody wants me to show specifically or?
Just looks to me, it would make my life real easy as a teacher.
That's the goal, yeah.
Yeah,
And then
that's really
eventually
great.
too, because I think a lot of this with the health side started because there's talk about legislature where parents are going to have access to view all of this. And so this way it's all right there and they can know, what's what. And I was going to.
User friendly.
So, and then you can so you can see the other units and so you can time it out and it'll show you your whole, so in middle school, they're supposed to have a quarter. So this yellow line is first quarter, the pink line is the semester, this yellow line is third quarter, and then this would be the end of the school year. So you can map out, that's why it's called a map. You can map out the whole year and know which units you're going to teach what.
I remember when Beaufort County teachers didn't have a pacing guide or guide. I mean, they made them up as they went, but this makes it so much easier to know what you're doing. Parents know what you're doing, but to understand it when you open up your guidebook, this is what you're expected to be teaching, and the kids know. It's awesome. So I'm excited about
Guesswork, no guesswork at all.
none.
And then the only other thing that I was going to comment, so like technically we show this as 2 weeks, but there's 16 lessons. Some of the lessons, at least what we're doing, we do more than one lesson in a day. So for example, today at my school, we did the puberty lesson, the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system all in one day because they were small enough chunks that we put it together. So we sat down as a department and said, how do we want to pair these up? And so that's why you're like, oh, there's 16 lessons, but you only have 8 days scheduled to teach it all.
And you would
Are
have to
you-
do that too if you needed to those would be single gender lessons.
Correct.
So you need to schedule that. If you're not a single gender class, you'd have to, so the map in theory, you're looking at it, but your school and your school, you might have to alter it slightly depending on what you're working with, but the goal
Yeah.
is to cover all of it in that time frame. Yeah.
So are you middle or high?
I'm middle school. All right. Any questions from anybody?
I'm curious because I don't remember being split up from the boys when I went through this information. So when did that happen? And
It's been a
what's
while.
the,
Yeah,
Been a
it's
long
been that
while.
since I've got here.
oh, okay.
When I taught Beaufort High reproductive health, 94 to 97, we split up just for
Really?
contraception and some other things.
Oh, maybe I'm just
Yeah.
kind
And at that point,
of old.
there was no textbook either.
Oh, wow.
It was straight lecture and vocabulary sheets and brochures and, yeah.
I came from North Carolina where they didn't segregate and each school district created their own curriculum.
In
that
my
got
day, it
approved.
wasn't discussed, period.
We've come a long way.
All right, I'm
Another
looking.
thing is maturity, you know.
Yeah.
Stop
boys
cheering.
and Girls and
Okay.
a little bit.
Maybe they'll share or question a little
Yeah,
bit more. They'll,
Their peers,
got it.
with the boys being in there, they're gonna giggle.
Well, I will say, I think that especially today, watching the kids doing the reproductive systems, I do think that they were glad they were separated.
Some of the vocabulary, they think is too
Yeah.
personal to be in a co-ed
Well,
setting.
even so, in the textbook itself, it even mentions that boys mature, their brain development is delayed compared to girls. And so I think even just that biological fact, where they are mental, emotionally and maturity wise, I think is helpful. All right, so, I'm leaving this list. Sorry. Next, we're gonna review the new culture middle school curriculum.
So it's not necessarily a review. I'm just gonna share with you sort of a brief overview. With the hope that when Dr. Stratus and I can get together, we're going to look through it. The challenge that we have, so the material that you all just reviewed, the supplemental material, is attached to the textbook, which is state adopted material. The state, because I have reached out to ask more than once, there is no supplemental material beyond the textbook for this area. There's nothing that the state adopted and approved. So it makes it challenging to find things outside of the textbook to offer teachers because you want to align with the standards, you want to align with the laws, you want to align with all of the expectations that the textbook had for its approval, but there is nothing that they stamp as approved. Does that make sense? So new culture is the updated version of what we used to use 4 years ago that was called Making a Difference. It was the middle school material that I taught for years. It's scripted. It has a parent letter that every lesson is paired with a parent letter so that the parent and suggestions that I read doing the research was like you could send the letter home and count it as a formative assessment where they bring it back, but it's to let the parent know what was discussed and also to have a conversation with their child. There's a minimal, I went through all of the curriculum, and again, we have to sit down with Dr. Stratus, but the challenge is it's not state adopted and approved, but it is something that we've used in the past. So we'll come to that crossroad and figure out if that's something that we want to have come forward and, move further with. But I just wanted to, because some of your concerns are that how do you use this one thing 6th, 7th, and 8th? So that is something that teachers are echoing also because it's challenging. One textbook, 3 grade levels is challenging. So something that we're exploring, something that I want to share, but that we need to have her vet it and approve it and all the things before we go any further. So, but I just wanted to mention it and let you all know about it and that it's promising and something that hopefully.
So new culture is a health.
It's reproductive health, but
Okay.
it's heavy in relationship and it does a lot with building up like self-esteem and conversations about yourself and your worth and things like that.
It's skill-based, so it's a lot of
Skill-based, yeah.
hands-on role play, having them, giving them a scenario and how, decision-making and analyzing
Yes.
influences and.
Thank you.
So the teacher would have the textbook online, materials we just reviewed, and then this also?
Well, the way we've done it, when I taught it, the way we did it in the past was making a difference was reserved for 7th grade.
Okay,
And so we used the textbook, you had the textbook option so that you can diversify a little bit.
Okay.
So that by the time they leave, say, middle school, they've had this, they've had that, and then you're sending them on to high school, kind of a well-rounded
So like
knowledge.
typically just the progression, right? 6th grade would get like the puberty and the male reproductive system, some of the physiological things that happen, where 7th grade, they're starting to, branch out a little bit and date whomever. And so then they get put in, but also too, I think just the decision making, because that part of their brain is starting to develop and the reasoning and then in 8th grade, give them more of the like STDs and pregnancy type of material.
Mhm. But just so that they're hearing it in different ways. Yeah. So, but that's, step 4. We're on step, so we'll see.
Or stuff
We're moving along.
half step.
We're somewhere.
Is that ETR? Is that the publisher? The
Honestly, I don't know. I'm
so
not
this
sure.
is something the school district purchases, the new culture.
The short answer to that is if it was yes.
Okay.
There's a couple options, but yes, it's something that you would have purchased. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? So that leads us to future topics.
So one thing, we have kind of a leftover on our future topic. Is the update of the bylaws where we would just do the one sentence or the paragraph where you make the decision about how many meetings committee members can miss or participate in prior to a letter being sent. So we have to change that in the bylaws before we can send out a letter. So that's a kind of like a one and done step. So at the next meeting, we can just vote on the paragraph, the sentence that you all want to put in about regulating how many, meetings a committee person can miss or not participate in.
Do we create that sentence or paragraph, or do we get options from legal?
We would provide you
Okay.
options for legal. And then you all put your input.
I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that you have 2 unexcused absences, with what.
Negate you off the committee.
But on the other hand, I mean, if someone was ill and
Right.
they had surgery and there was no way they could do it. And although, many people who were ill could do it by Zoom.
Right.
So,
And that was one of the things you can look at. It's like, you might not be able, it's like Caitlin has not been able to, but she's been a faithful participant on Zoom. So you might not be able to come here in person, but you make the option available to participate by Zoom. So, yes, ma'am.
I was just thinking back to, weren't we given by the state, was it the state or how many participants we could have?
We have that, but we had that, but it doesn't say how often you have to participate, because we've had we've had more meetings than the state requires.
We started out.
Check
with-
that box.
Didn't
Yeah, but we would.
We got one.
Didn't we start out with roughly 12?
Yes,
Or so?
yes,
And-
yes.
And then
Down
we had
to,
several that dropped out pretty quickly.
or just
Right.
didn't, yes, exactly.
So, I think my question now is, so we had students who were supposed to be a part of this.
Right.
And,
The ones that came, it just did not work out for the schedule.
so I'm just trying to figure out, like what you were saying. two and done, whatever. But when you talk about kids and responsibilities, they're not as responsible as we are. Some are, but if they're gonna be on this committee, I think we really need to stress to them.
And the problem is, it's a state requirement that we have it, but there's nothing to enforce it. I mean,
Wasn't it a student body president that was?
Yep, it is very specific. It
And
is.
so theoretically, that would be a role that was, I hate to say, required for student body president, but yet I'm sure student body
And we
president.
have, right, and we have 6 high schools, so it's like, which president do we put on there or, find out? And my suggestion is maybe if they can tag team, because everybody can't come. So one of the things I was gonna recommend is, get with the student body presidents at each school or whatever, and then maybe schedule, it's like, okay, you can come at this meeting, you can come at that meeting, and so forth, and maybe that way they can't come each, but we would have a representative.
I
on the
think
meeting.
too, like, the Zoom is nice because I think
Yes.
about like, I don't know if when I was a senior, if my mom would have let me drive from Hilton Head to Beaufort.
Correct.
With traffic and everything else, I don't know that
Exactly.
would have been something she would have allowed me to do. But I don't want to exclude, if we have somebody that wants to participate from the South End.
Well,
Because of that.
I think if we notify the various student body presidents of who we are and what we're doing, and the fact that we would like student participation and, see, I mean, hopefully there would be, 1 or 2 that would say that sounds like something I
They
want to
meet
do.
as a council.
So they meet during the day. So when I reached out to the ones who were recommended on, and when I called the other ones, because we meet in the evening, their preference was to meet during the day.
Sure.
And because we meet in the evening, they either have athletics or they're at work. So their schedule does not accommodate, for the ones that I had talked to, their schedule does not accommodate meeting. There was after band practice. When they moved from band, they went into athletics, and then went from athletics, and then they have work schedule. So their preferences was, there any way we could meet after during school time or whatever? And it's like, well, the rest of the committee people, are work. We have teachers who are teaching during that time period. So I don't know if we move it to a weekend or, I mean, that was the reason why they can't at the time. So it really is a scheduling time for the high schoolers.
I like the idea of, we have 6 high schools.
Yeah.
And all 6 presidents, and give them a month. You come in June, you come in May, whatever, and
Going forward.
via
only-
Zoom,
Yeah.
because they can, via Zoom, if possible. But I would like to see, student participation, their questions or thoughts. But I'm like him with the adults. If you can't make it via Zoom, or you can't make it to at least 2 or 3 meetings, and that should be a wrap. But again, I don't want to not have someone on the team, so. Whatever you guys decide you want to do with it, it's fine with me. Because I know for me, health issues for me. But I think I attended a couple of the Zoom meetings because I can't drive at night. Well, now I can drive because, it's daylight, and I can come. And everybody has their own issues or whatever, So,
So because that's not on the agenda, we can't continue the conversation of the bylaws. It's just as a topic. I'm just being a little bad. So
well,
So if you give us some next for future topic, what else do we want for a future topic?
Well, when's the next academic committee meeting?
Next academic committee meeting is.
Can I give a delayed thought on the other? I know you have the president, is it? And then you have a vice president. I know it's in the law, the president. Is it possible to put if the president is not the vice president of the student body?
Sure.
Send a representative.
The representative.
Sure.
I think that's a
Mhm.
great idea, because they're excluding, like, these people are overachievers, and they're having all these hats that they're,
So the next academic committee meeting is scheduled for May 28th.
So,
I don't,
That's tentatively. Yes, ma'am?
oh,
That's Liz.
I was about to say that because of the graduations.
Right, that's right. We weren't having, because graduation, so we didn't have any more in May. Thank you.
oh, so
Graduation, great, so we don't have.
we don't have one.
We were
Okay.
talking about moving it up to the 21st, but we had to get a consensus. So we don't have an academic committee. Technically, we don't have one scheduled yet.
Okay,
Long
so
story short.
short version then, I'm assuming that we would have presented academic committee and potentially to the board, depending on what academic committee has us do. So then we would want to report out back to,
So then, wouldn't really then schedule again until,
June.
be reporting back to academics if we have one in May.
board meetings, there aren't any board meetings in June.
Yes,
Yes.
board meeting in June is the 8th and the 22nd. Oh, wrong, sorry. Board meetings in June is the 10th and the 24th. This is graduations that first week. So academics might be meeting the week of the 19th
Okay,
of May.
so in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So then for us, I don't know what people's schedules are for summer and vacations. Do we want to push it to end of July, beginning of August? For our next meeting?
I don't know my schedule then, but I'll be happy.
Would it happen before teachers report back July 30th? So would it be possible that a meeting could happen before that, this meeting?
I would suggest that we have this meeting at the end of June.
And then not again
So
until
we can do
August?
1, 2, 3, 4. We could meet June 23rd.
Here,
Oh, okay. Or, okay,
yeah,
June
military.
30th.
I won't be here.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
be gone for 10 days
Yeah.
for my military training. Yeah.
And then, yeah, it would be part of August.
You're trying
You're
to
trying
get
to
it
get it
approved for the teacher.
Well, but it's got to go to the school board to get approved.
Well, you know what?
Well,
If
that
you
would
want to
be-
do the 23rd, that's fine, but I just,
Approved,
like,
and
if
then the meeting is to inform them that it's approved, right?
hopefully it's no, nothing we have to present.
Two meetings
Here,
simultaneously.
yeah, but they don't, technically, we don't have to meet again to say that it's been approved to present it to the teachers. Once the
That is
board
true.
approves it, the board approves it.
That is true.
And there's
So
only
once-
one meeting in July for the school board, and that's
Okay.
July 8th.
Well,
Well, it was approved in June.
Yeah.
And we can work on it with the intent that it would be ready for meeting days when the teachers come back. So it could be anytime.
So what the work that you all have done here, you want to be able to take it to the May or the June board meeting.
That sounds great. The only thing too, though, is wouldn't you like to have the attendance piece in place when we go back in August?
That would be the only thing, like in the change in the bylaws. So that
Right.
way, because the
Yeah.
students would be coming back in August and we can get them at the beginning. of
And
the
you would
school.
hope to maybe get some, if someone wanted to join the committee, an adult, you
Mhm.
want them to have the information of what the expectation would be.
Well, the question, I was just looking at dates in May that
Yeah.
are on Mondays, but you all have met on other days other than Mondays. So you can, I mean, that's up to you all. And it's the same thing in June. You can meet on other days other than Monday, whatever your
We also need to consider Dr. Strata's schedule. Yeah.
Whatever you do in June, I'll probably be a Zoom, because I'm gonna be
Yeah.
gone most of the whole month.
And this.
I'll just plan on Zoom, as long as we.
Any day,
All of you can, it could be a Zoom meeting for everyone if you would like.
Well, I'm not sure what it is that this committee needs to do next, but whenever y'all decide that this is something that we need to do, you know, Amy can send out a note to us that says we need to meet to do this. And these are a couple of options. And we can decide that by email, I think.
Yeah.
you know.
If if, other than curriculum, I could send you out the wording if you want, you know, as a suggestion. This is what legal, and based off of what the feedback that you all are saying about, you know, we can send that and you can say, yes, you agree,
Sure.
don't agree, and
So you're saying that that could actually be done without a meeting?
well,
Still
it
be-
would be a
Oh.
Zoom, it would be a Zoom meeting, or, yeah.
so it would have to be a vote, but
It still has to be a vote, but we could do it as, you know,
Okay.
Because it still will have to go to the academic.
correct. Anything coming out of here still needs to go to the academics, and then from academics to the full board.
All right. Any other future topics? Okay, so I've got bylaws and then report out of from whatever academic committee or board of ed shit decides. All right, so,
Whatever they come up with for us, you know.
yeah, we'll just, so with unanimous consent, we can adjourn.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of hard work. Instructors.